everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of our show, The More We Get Together, Conversations That Build Bridges, or as we like to affectionately call it, the Itsy Bitsy Zoomcast.
So tonight I want to introduce our guests this evening. So here with us tonight, we have Tina Palatino. Tina is a Western Mass preschool teacher. She has expertise in early intervention and Montessori education, and she's also a parent. So we have that perspective from her tonight as well.
And I would love to introduce Kira Durrett. Kira is the director of the Williston Northampton Children's Center. She is an adjunct instructor in the education department at Greenfield Community College, and she is also a trainer for Strong Start Western Professional Development Center. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we are on episode 3 of our series, and the focus of series 1 is connecting practicum students with their field. So with me tonight, our guest hosts are 2 of HCC's current practicum students, Kiara Feliciano and Harmony Shiel. So Kiara and Harmony were really working to focus on tonight's topic called perceptions of quality. So we were really thinking very carefully about perceptions of quality, and I value their own perceptions of quality as new people in our field. And they really wanted to talk about this idea from the lenses of families, parents, politicians, leaders in the field, and teachers. So what I want to know, students, from you both tonight is, what do you value most about quality early education and care? Harmony, do you want to start?
Sure. I think that high quality education is through hands-on learning and also has an emphasis on outdoor play. I also think that it should be equitable and allow children from diverse backgrounds and cultures to receive equal levels of education.
How about you, Kiara?
For me, it's all about creating community and, again, like Harmony said, making sure everything's equitable for our children, families, because I feel like family is a really big deal and a really big part in helping our children and making sure that they're getting and growing to the best of their abilities.
That's awesome. So Kiara, do you want to start off tonight and just kind of set the stage?
Yeah, so when we were preparing for tonight, we were focusing on 3 lenses, and that would be of the perspective of families, teachers, and politicians. And Harmony is going to give our first question.
Okay, so how do you think the pandemic has changed families, teachers, and politicians' views on views of quality early childhood care and accessibility?
So to me, this idea of quality early education and care is all about relationships. And once the pandemic started and we were all stuck in our own places, I think we all realized how important those educator relationships are. And it's not just the family to educator relationships, but the child to child relationships, the child to educator relationships, the family to child to teacher, all of those relationships really were missing and lacking. And I think that, to me, is what stands out the most. Because we can put out activities, we can send home things, we can set up beautiful provocations for children, but the magic happens when you do that together. And that is what was missing in the pandemic.
And I'll piggyback off that too, because I was going to say something pretty similar. Those interactions, between the teachers and the children, the interactions between the children and the children. And as a teacher myself, I was missing my teachers, like my community that I go to every single day. I was even missing it. So imagine all of a sudden the children are missing their place that they go every single day. So it was that social emotional piece weighed heavy on me, thinking about my students as well as my coworkers. So I think those relationships are huge.
Do you think it's more visible to those audiences that we're thinking about tonight, how important those relationships are after we had that time without them?
I
Yeah.
believe so. Like, I totally think, people who have children in early childhood programs that I have spoken to, not only do they, the amount of times I said, like, they can't work because their child's program was closed, or, and also seeing their kids not interacting with other children and seeing how their personalities changed. I think, it definitely, and people I would never have that conversation with, the conversation was coming up. So I think it is definitely in the forefront of everyone.
And I think the comments we're hearing in our program from families have shifted post-pandemic, or I guess we're still pandemic, post-quarantine. That before that, we've always had great relationships with families and had wonderful conversations, but now we're hearing things like, I so appreciate my child having friendships, and my child is coming home and talking about, listing off the names of all of their friends at school. And that holds more meaning because we understand the importance of that. And before, I think families just took that for granted, like we all did.
Yeah.
And we were all moving so fast. And now maybe we can see some things a little differently. And then when I think about relationships and I think about this lens of politician or the outside world, I think that what's come to the forefront for people outside of our field is that we're actually the backbone of the economy, right? And that's so visible now, and that wasn't visible before. And I can't remember a day where I haven't seen an article in the New Yorker or pick a publication about early childhood and the sort of the implications of it being gone or how it impacts workers. It's pretty profound.
Can I tell a little story of something that happened at my school yesterday? I was with some 2-year-olds outside, and one of our 2-year-olds got himself into a toy bin. It's a round toy bin, and he was in there very happily playing with 2 zebras. And one of the other 2-year-olds was incredibly concerned that this child was in there and that he insisted he needed help getting out. And so I was explaining, I think he's okay. He looks really happy. Let's look at him, what he's doing. And this child would not take no for an answer. So he went over to his friend in the bucket and so gently and carefully held out his hand to help him out. And of course, the other child didn't want to get out of the bucket. So he was like, okay, whatever, I'll take your hand. And they held hands for a minute. And they very clearly had different visions of what this interaction was about. And then it turned into this giggle fest where the one who was helping him started tickling the other one. And they were both laughing hysterically. And that is just a teeny little snippet of quality. That is why we have school. And the amount of learning that happened in that 1.5 minutes was amazing. And then that happens all day long. And I know for me, that's what I missed the most. And Liz, to go back to your point about all of us moving more slowly now, I've noticed that. And I think I would have noticed it before, but I have more appreciation for that moment now.
Wow. Harmony, Kiara, do you want to ask our next question?
Yeah. So what do you think is the biggest factor in quality care that is misunderstood?
So that is like a loaded question.
Came with all the loaded questions this time.
Yes. So I'm trying to because there's so much that I think could be misunderstood. I was having a conversation recently about how, because of the pandemic and because childcare centers were closed, people were scrambling to find places for their children to go so that they could continue to work. So I would hear people saying, well, it's just a place. It's just a daycare. It's just somewhere for a child to go so that I can work. But so I guess like that statement in itself irks me a little bit, because people misunderstand what early childhood is, when it's not just a place for someone to watch my child so that I can go to work or whatnot. What is happening in the walls of a quality childhood child program is so much more than just someone watching my child. So I think that statement is one that people misunderstand. It's not just daycare. It's not just preschool. So I think, the interactions between the children, the interactions between the teachers, the social emotional well-being, the safety and well-being, overall well-being of that child. There is so much happening within the walls of a classroom that I don't think people fully understand. The professional development of teachers it's constantly happening. I know I'm always networking with the teachers in my program to learn more, or if they have something that works, if I'm struggling with something in my classroom, I'm constantly trying to better myself for my students, so I think there's so much that happens within the walls that people don't fully understand it's just a daycare. So I think that really, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it does. It really does.
And that resonates with every early childhood educator on the planet.
Yeah.
Maybe not the whole planet, but in our region. And I would say to follow up on that, people think quality early childhood, and quality, yes, it needs to be safe. And there's no questions that's where it starts, the bottom line. Children need to be cared for, they need to be loved, they need to know that they are safe. And what makes it quality is the next level of everything that happens in the early childhood setting. So, we could put babies in cribs and just leave them there all day and stick bottles in their mouths, and they would be safe. They would have adults watching them and they would be safe. And none of us would say that that's quality care. It's the social interactions. We need the professional eyes that early childhood educators have, the perspective that they come with, the expertise that they have in child development, to take those learning moments and make them into something magical. And that's what makes quality. And I think, in some ways in Massachusetts, we're really lucky because we do have EEC, and our regulations are really much, much broader and more encompassing than many states. And that is sometimes a blessing and sometimes that's a curse. But in general, there needs to be some sort of regulatory oversight that has to be there. But it's so important for families to have choice in what they want for their children and their family. So there isn't a way for a regulatory body to say, this is how it should be done. Because we all are coming from very different perspectives, very different communities, backgrounds, races, ethnicities, all of it. And to define what quality is for all of those is nearly impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a balancing act of this regulatory safety stuff and giving enough freedom for the professionals in the field to know what is right for this particular group of children and families and community. There's my soapbox.
I love it.
It's a good one.
I've got a lot of soapboxes back here. I could go on for hours.
You know what? I keep thinking about minds and hearts, and that when a child 0 to 5 is when so much brain development is happening, and some would say the most important, the most critical brain development is happening in our lifetime, is between 0 and 5. And so when I was a preschool teacher, an infant toddler teacher, a director, I just always tried to remember that there are these gorgeous brains, and it sounds strange, but in each room, and that they were primed and ready to experiment and explore. Children are scientists. They're creative and imaginative. They actually are performing the scientific method over and over again, testing hypotheses and theories, experimenting, predictions, classification, you name it, they're doing that. And so to have that be valued by a larger audience would be fantastic, like globally valued, or I should say nationally. And then I think of hearts. And I think every day, caregivers, families bring their children into programs, and they basically say, here's my heart. And I'm going to ask that you take good care of this heart while I go to work. And when I come back, I'm going to collect my heart again. And I need it to be intact. And I need to know that you've held it close and that you've cared for it deeply. And then I'm going to return my heart back to you in the morning. And in that way, it is so much more than babysitting, isn't it? When you think of
I love that.
These brains, these hearts, it's you can't call an early childhood educator a babysitter when their job is to nourish minds and to care for hearts. That's not babysitting. And by the way, babysitters are lovely, lovely people, but we as a field to be seen as early childhood educators is really important.
And I love that Kira brought up the knowledge of development, and that's my soapbox, I think, is just making sure that we maintain that all early educators have the opportunity to have a deep knowledge of development, and that's at the core of their decision making. And I mean, how many little decisions do early childhood educators make all day long? You know, as social decisions, play decisions. Do I interact? Do I watch for a little longer? All those decisions, but they're all based on a very deep knowledge of development and developmentally effective practice, not just appropriate. So I love that Kira brought up the importance of development and the decisions that go on when you're having those interactions based on what you know about what the children need, because that brain, you're right, Liz, it's developing so fast.
So we had a very similar discussion the other night in my, I'm teaching right now an infant and toddler course. And I actually shared the same exact story that I just shared with you about the hand holding and all of that. And we had a big discussion about how that interaction plays out as this child moves up in development. So how is that empathy that they're learning now? What's that going to look like when they're in second grade? What is empathy going to look like when they're in 7th grade and they see someone in the cafeteria sitting by themselves? Are they going to reach out their hand and hold that hand and help that child? And then you translate that into this crazy world that we're living in right now. And are they going to hold their hand out to their neighbor who has differing political views? Or are if we're teaching these lessons now, those are things that stay with them, that creates a better community for all of us in the long run.
Right.
Here.
I love it. We hope that it grows. And I'm so thankful to Kiara and Harmony. They spent a lot of time designing tonight's conversation with Liz and I and amongst themselves and with their peers who are not on the screen with us tonight, but they'll have their turn. So I just want to thank them for the effort and the genuine care that they put into tonight's program. You both did amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you.
Yeah, and I would love to say that I'm like on the farther end of my career. Not quite ready for retirement, but moving in that direction. And what gives me hope is students like you who are coming into the field with so much more knowledge
Yes.
and knowledge than I had when I started at 18, when I just thought I was hanging out with cute little people. And now, like, the people who are coming into the field are just starting at such a higher plane, and it makes me so hopeful.
Yeah.
Tina and I had this same conversation the other day when we were prepping for tonight, and she said, I wish we did this when I was in college.
Yeah, I am totally blown away by the Zoomcast, and I'm like, man, what these students are receiving before they're even really in the field. It's going to be
Great to be a part of the
amazing.
conversation.
Yeah, it's amazing. You guys have an amazing professor.
We've got a good team. We have a good team.
Well, we should probably wrap up our Zoomcast.
Harmony, do you want to wrap us up?
Sure. I just want to thank Kira and Tina for joining us tonight and answering these questions and having this conversation. And it was great to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, you too.
And also,
I just want to really quickly thank the rest of the practicum class that's not here tonight. And there's a huge team at HCC that edits and promotes and publishes these videos for us. So thank you. You're all awesome with my million emails. And for all of the advocates that are out there sharing our Zoomcasts throughout our EEC networks, I appreciate you sharing our conversations. Kiara, it's you.
now, be on the lookout for our next Itsy Bitsy Zoomcast called Accessing Childcare, Cost, Quality, and Convenience, Barriers for Parents.
Yeah, so that's coming up. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. You're all amazing. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.